Hey everybody. I figured I'd talk to you a little bit today about loyalty. What do you stand for? What nation do you decide to call not only home, but that you decide that that is worth living and dying for? And of that nation, what is it that you're standing for? Why are you standing for it? Why do you have this sense of pride that you're going for? I'm asking these questions because I myself am asking that of, my own nation. What do I stand for? Well, I could say I stand for the United States, but looking at the history of it, what it's done not only to my family, but to other families across the world, not just in the United States itself. What of it do I stand for? I certainly stand for the Constitution of the United States because that is the only thing that's worth standing for at this point. There's a lot of good history, but there's a lot of bad to cover up all that goodness. Man, for 2/3 of our lifespan, we've been at war. And, there are various reasons someone could go to bat to explain it, various different factions that we could have been fighting for. But to be honest, the way I look at it, I see it as this. Rome never fell. The Roman Empire never fell. And they realized that therein they had to find ways to get people to be convinced to go to war. However, they also needed a strong fighting force. Prior to Christianity, Rome had the best fighting force for various reasons. Because one, mainly their adaptability. They would take things from those that they conquered and say, this works, so I'm going to include it into my forces. These tactics, these weapons, whatever it is. And above all, what they would do is they would take values of the state that were beautiful, and then they would use that to give heart and passion and fire to their armed forces. And then they would send them to war to conquer for the sake of their oligarchy. What have we been doing in the United States? The same thing. Same thing. If you want to know why our country is the way it is, look at the history of Rome and then get back to American history. It'll explain everything. So why do I stand for it? Well, I do and I don't. I do because this is my homeland. I grew up here. So if we're invaded, I'll fight here in the United States against foreign or domestic, whatever tyranny it is. However, you also have to ask yourself, who are you willing to stand beside? I'm sure as hell not standing beside the state because the state is wrong. The state of the United States, and I mean that is the state as in the government, the mind control, governo mente, or mentis, which is Latin. So, why did I bring all this up? There are people I've been finding recently. Obviously they've been around for a while, but people who support both the United States and Israel. They think it's almost synonymous at this point, that we have to be bound together, like we're twins, which we're not. Sure, we've been a nation of war, but Israel, they've been a nation of tyranny and terrorism since the moment they were born. Even before their birth, in the birthing process, they were still spilling blood. How can you say this? If they weren't born yet, if they weren't in fruition, how is it that they could be spilling blood? Well, quite simply, it's because the terrorist groups that were conceived by Zionists, by whack jobs with money and weapons. And there lies the issue. Why is it that a fighting force can be so ferocious? It's because they have something to fight for. This is why they made the United States the way it is. Rome realized that if it wanted to conquer the world, it could not do that with a fighting force that was already disheartened by war because they didn't want to go to hell. But if they are too stupid to know what they're going to hell for, and too imbued with fire and passion that they'll go to war for anything, well, then there you go. That's the purpose of the United States of America. That is what we've been birthed for. That is the great experiment, the great American experiment. It was just an idea between a bunch of different factions over in Europe. And they were like, all right, well, there's a land over here that we can do that with a completely weak force of people that are not technologically advanced. They do not stand together. They are as weak as the pagan North to the Roman Empire, which I'm not saying that even either such were just, because of what they were. They're weak. And I'm meaning this simply in the logic of the situation. When you're dealing with a bunch of different tribes that have no faith in each other, let alone themselves, and the only loyalty that they have is through their blood, but is easily spilled because of, petty differences, then all you have to do is to start trade and then kill your enemies, and then you make sides with people, and then you play the sides together. Voila! That's what the Romans did to conquer well over half of their empire. That's how they did it. If they couldn't just immediately come in and conquer, they would send people in for the sake of trade and diplomacy, and next thing you know, you got people cutting each other's throats left and right, making their system of cohesion completely null and void. We did the exact same thing. And I think that's part of the reason why before I became an actual Christian, I was almost averted from Christianity. I blamed it. I put all that blame on Christ. When I should have put the blame exactly where it belonged. On the people that did those horrible things. On the conquerors. On the ignorant troops that should have known exactly what they were doing. But then here we are in the circle, doing it again, in the Middle East now. We did it to make the nation that we have. And now we're doing it to conquer the world for a nation that does not care about us. Not one lick. There's not a single Israeli out there that can tell me that, that they stand for the United States. I don't give a shit. They get $20,000 a year just to live there from our tax dollars. While we got homeless people probably eating shoes behind a dumpster somewhere. Probably close to the million somewhere. Just hiding along in the cities, dying off of fucking dysentery because they can't afford to see a doctor, and yet some schmuck over in Israel can just complain about some BS. All these anti-Semites, As I go into my American paid hospitals, I can get taken care of and get housing, all these things handed to me. Oh, I wish I was Jewish. I'd go over there and make bank. But reality is, here I am. Just some poor old goy related to a bunch of wealthy schmucks who are so full of themselves because they have some form of status in high society. So what do I stand for? Well, I sure as hell don't stand for the rich. I sure as hell don't stand for Israel. Do I stand for the United States? Well, no, I don't. Thinking on it, I really don't. And I'm a United States Marine. So at this point, I stand for the Constitution. That's it. If you are a good human being and you live in this United States, thank God. I love you. If you need help, call upon me. I will do what I can. If there is war going on and you are being oppressed, I will fight for you. Even if I disagree with you, I will fight for you. But the rest of you, if you want to enslave the other side of America, if you want to kick out people that do want to be here, if you want to be lost to idolatry, whether it be to the left or the right, I don't care. You are not someone I want to care about. You are not someone I want to fight for, to be completely honest. Because at this rate, all you want is to have a God on earth that is not Christ. And that I won't stand for. I have more respect out of the Islamic community than I do for majority of Christians today. Because most of the Christians are idolaters. And I'm not saying like I know every Christian, but there's so many out there that are so lost to the system that they honestly think that Trump is going to be their only savior. When you hear that coming out of a Christian's mouth, I can't help but have a headache. The Lord is the one that saves. He's your savior. If he truly is your savior, then you should probably rethink your words. Oh, but the election system, we gotta stop Hillary and we gotta stop Joe Biden and yeah, okay, I'm right there with you, but it doesn't mean that you're gonna have to submit to a lesser evil. When you start submitting to evil, you're submitting to evil. Period. And when you realize that your system is rigged from the get-go, I mean, I was, blessed with having a grandfather that was part of the rigging system, for crying out loud. And he was just like, voting, it's ridiculous. I even asked him, why, like, Grandpa, if the voting system doesn't work, why go there? Because he wouldn't, no, at least he wouldn't vote from last I checked, but from what he would say, he would actually go and work. He would actually work in the booths. He would do the counting. He'd take the signatures from people, check IDs. And I asked him, why? Curiosity. That was it. Because he knew that there was nothing he could do. He was part of the people that rigged the system, and he knew that most, if not everything that he knew that he was a part of, it didn't matter what he said to somebody. Most people would just call him a liar. Or they would just not believe it. Or they would just be so shocked by the information that, as he would call it, a mental wall would come up. So, at that rate, you might as well be talking to an actual physical wall. What's the point? So I say to all of you, ask yourselves, what do you stand for? What are you willing to live for and die for? These are two very important things. It's easy to live for something, to be completely honest. It's hard to die for something. To truly have the passion for that. To be really willing and ready to do so. And of course, without getting too hungry for it either. Don't get hungry for death. Satan likes that. It's part of the reason why the Roman Empire was so powerful for so long prior to Christ is because so many people wanted to find something to live and die for. So they gave it to them. In battle, that'll breed some passion and fire in you. Good or bad. So, all I can say now at the end of this video is prepare yourself, be ready for war, pray for peace. First and Second Amendment. God bless and good luck. Oh, one last thing. For the sake of Angelo, I agree with you. Fuck Israel.